Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Monday afternoon Choochin, our last Monday in April, believe it or not. And where has 2015 gone to? 1/3 of the year is gone. Kind of amazing to me. It's a beautiful day out. It's warm. Pardon the stick shakiness. The dogs are like frantic here today. Get them out of here. Andy's just following in the footsteps of old Wolfie by just being totally and completely dicked in the leash as time goes by. Oh, well, anyway, guys, interesting little side chooch today. Kind of sad when you think about it. A couple people have written me over the last couple days and know that I was born and raised in Baltimore and lived a significant amount of my life there. And wanted to know, gee, I hope your family's okay in Baltimore and everything. Well, my family there is right in the thick of everything. If you saw my prior videos on the Rosie O'Kelly channel about 2 years ago, my trip to Baltimore, you will see some interesting videos, and one of them in particular, and it's a whole good series. It talks about Babe Ruth and my grandfather growing up right around the corner from Babe Ruth and hanging out with him and stuff. And, gone to visit John Wilkes Booth's grave in Baltimore. The guy that shot President Lincoln, and just a lot of interesting uploads down on the Inner Harbor. First morning chooch when I got there, chooching with the skyline behind me. Really some nice, I think it was some nice work that was done in there. So let me get Mandy undickered here. Ooh, it's like a full-time job keeping her square on the leash. But one of the videos that I talked about was about, we got the recycled dicks out here today. One of the videos that I talked about was, racial division and the way that they have the town set up. And by way of background, Baltimore, of course, was it was one of the, I guess in the 1950s and 60s, it was one of the probably top 6 or 7, within the top 10 large cities in America, and it boasted a tremendous base of manufacturing employment. In other words, it was a town where people made stuff, and then as stuff started going overseas and the people started fleeing because of racial problems and perceived racial problems and things like that, what they called the white flight, as more people started fleeing to the counties in the late 60s and 70s, in the aftermath of the riots in the late 60s, of which a significant part of Baltimore burned. And I remember as a kid standing on the roof of St. Mary's Cemetery on the northern edge of St. Mary's Seminary, where they trained Catholic priests, and we had a friend that was training to be a priest there, and he invited us to come up there for safety. And I remember standing on the roof there and seeing the skyline just ablaze at nighttime. It was pretty freaky thing. But with the decline of industry, Bethlehem Steel was one of the largest steel works in the world. Sparrows Point shipyards, I can't even tell you how many ships they turned out for the war effort and how much steel came out of that Bethlehem Steel. Sparrows Point plant, Procter & Gamble had a manufacturing operation down there. Just the list goes on and on. Western Electric, most of the cable in the United States, the big ocean-going cable, all the cable you see strung on telephone poles from pole to pole, all the spring cords that went from the telephone receiver handset to the base unit were all made in Baltimore out of the cord shop. where I used to work, and this General Motors plant. Just the list goes on and on of major manufacturing. And when that stuff started closing down and shipping overseas, of course, the city was gutted more and more. Now, it did have the beautiful Inner Harbor, the Camden Yards, the stadium where the Orioles play was really the first stadium that started to trend towards old-time looking sort of parks, and Camden Yards with the big B&O warehouse as part of left field. All these things sort of created a mini rebirth of Baltimore. But of course it wasn't enough to offset the damage that was taking place with the loss of industry. So as a result, you had more polarization. And of course, growing up, I've told you guys before, I certainly remember seeing signs for whites only, for color, this bathroom, that, going to lunch counters in the department stores, and seeing for whites only at one end, movie theaters, whites only bathrooms and colors. It was very, very common as I was growing up in the early 60s, and I really vividly remember that. Well, that was also played out, and if you see my Baltimore video about desegregation, you could have these really fancy neighborhoods, Guilford, Homeland, in Baltimore, and they would be right smack up against the worst neighborhoods in Baltimore City. In other words, you'd have $1 million homes right across the street, basically, from urban ghettos with houses you couldn't even give away. And all the streets were zoned to come out of the fancy neighborhoods, and there were no streets in. In other words, it was like it was totally closed off to any vehicle traffic unless you were coming out. And let me tell you, that kept a lot of, they supposed a lot of riffraff out in their neighborhoods. And it just pointed out to me, as I said in my upload, it really delineated how prejudice continues, right up until this very day, and I pointed it out. So it's no surprise to me that stuff is hitting the fan, and of course, it's almost a subtropical city anyway. In the summertime with the Chesapeake Bay and everything, it gets extraordinarily hot in Baltimore into the low to mid 90s, and of course, being on the bay, it's exceedingly humid in summertime too. So you see humidity's up around 90%. It is like it's like being in a living hell there. And let me tell you, having lived and grown up on the, no air conditioning, no nothing, you get people that are hotter than a firecracker and pissed off, and they are hair triggers, so you never know. You throw in a little bit of the militarization of our police these days, and it's just a really bad brew. I loved Baltimore in a lot of ways, and I like going back and visiting just to see some of the the really nice stuff. You got a lot of high-enders live in certain areas, but as far as quality of life issues and stuff like that, and economic opportunity, until I got it out of there, I always figured my life would be the same depressed mess as many generations before me. So it all came good. Of course, I hope for the best, but it's smaller than New York City, and it's bigger than Ferguson, which makes it a real tinderbox size, city for stuff to go on. So anyway, that's my take on it. God bless everybody there. Stay safe, and keep reading the news and hoping for the best. Thanks for watching, everybody.